The Isu left behind everything from glorified jewelry to literal immortality machines. Some of these artifacts rewrote entire civilizations. Others just stopped a bullet. Today, I'm breaking down every single piece of Eden and what makes each one terrifying, starting with the one that's basically Isu body armor disguised as a ring, the Ring of Eden. So let's get something straight. The Ring of Eden is the floor. It's the entry-level piece of Eden, and even then, it's absurdly powerful by normal human standards. Designed by the Isu Idun as a personal electromagnetic shielding device, the ring projects a field around its wearer that deflects diamagnetic projectiles. Lead musket balls, energy discharges, anything magnetic or metallic coming your way just veers off course, which is, not ideal if you're the one shooting at the person wearing it. The most famous wielder was the pirate William Kidd in the late 1600s. And suddenly, his legendary reputation for charging headfirst into naval engagements makes a lot more sense. Musket fire literally couldn't touch him. Imagine being a sailor watching this maniac walk through a volley of gunfire without flinching. You'd assume he made a deal with the devil. In reality, he just had a really nice ring. But here's the thing. The ring is purely reactive and defensive. It can't control minds, heal wounds, or reshape reality. It stops bullets. That's it. Swing a sword at the wearer? Dead. Hit them with a wooden club? Also dead. Anything non-metallic bypasses the field entirely. Powerful, but clearly limited. There are also variants like the Ring of Blood and Ring of Moon that project fear-inducing illusions, but these are just cosmetic extensions of the same shielding tech. But if you think a bullet-deflecting ring is impressive, wait until you hear about an artifact that can literally bring people back from the dead, the Ankh. So the ring can stop a bullet. That's cute. The Ankh can stop death. Temporarily anyway, but still. Originally owned by the Isu known as Isis, the Ankh was designed as a biological scanner and repair device. It could heal the sick, mend injuries, and scan living people to store their mannerisms, basically creating a behavioral backup of whoever it touched. Think of it as a medical toolkit crossed with a personality hard drive. But Isis didn't build it for routine checkups. She built it because her husband Osiris was murdered and she wanted him back, and the Ankh delivered. It reanimated his body, imprinted his stored mannerisms back onto the corpse, and brought him back to life for a single night. One night. That's all she got. But it was enough to conceive their son, Horus, which means an entire pillar of Egyptian mythology exists because of what is essentially a fancy medical scanner with a grief-stricken creator. That's genuinely heartbreaking. Here's the thing though. The revival was explicitly temporary. Even an Isu, the literal creator of the device, couldn't make it permanent. The Ankh doesn't cure death. It just lets you borrow someone back for a few hours, which is somehow worse. Centuries later, the Ankh resurfaces after being looted from a pyramid and transported to Lugdunum in Gaul. A hidden one named Aquilus recovers it, only for it to vanish again after his death when his wife Valeria hides it. And here's where it gets interesting. Abstergo's modern researchers have actually questioned whether the Ankh is a true piece of Eden at all, or just a derivative device built using Isu science. Nobody knows for sure, but if you think one artifact messing with life and death is unsettling, wait until you hear about the crystal skulls and what they can do to the living. The crystal skulls. Most pieces of Eden want to control you. These ones just want to watch. The crystal skulls are pure information tools, and honestly, that might make them the most terrifying artifacts on this entire list. Here's the thing. 3 distinct types of crystal skull exist, and each one is creepier than the last. The first type works like a secure phone line. You have one skull, someone else has its pair, and you can communicate in real time with 0 chance of interception. No satellites, no cables, no radio towers, just 2 glowing skulls having a chat across continents. The second type adds a record and playback function, basically letting you leave voicemails on ancient alien technology. Cool, fine, normal. But the third type is where it gets genuinely unsettling. This version was integrated into the ISU Observatory in Jamaica, and its mechanic is simple. Take a vial of someone's blood, combine it with the skull, and you get permanent real-time surveillance of that individual. Anywhere on Earth, forever, 1 drop of blood, and you're watched for the rest of your life. Which is, not ideal. By 2012, Abstergo had gotten their hands on several first-type skulls. Warren Vittich and CEO Alan Ricken used them as their personal untraceable communication network, reserved exclusively for essential facilities. The Assassin Brotherhood couldn't intercept them, couldn't jam them, couldn't even detect them. The skulls operate on principles that exist entirely outside modern human surveillance architecture. Every intelligence agency on the planet would commit unspeakable acts for this technology, and the Templars just casually use them like burner phones. The Crystal Skulls don't mind control anyone. They don't project energy or heal wounds. But total, perfect, unjammable information is an extraordinary lever of power in the right hands. The NSA's dream device, built 75,000 years ago. But if you think surveillance technology is impressive, wait until you see what happens when you start combining pieces of Eden together. The precursor box. In 1918, a small ECU device sitting next to a fragmented piece of Eden did something that should be impossible. It took the genetic memories of Xiao Jun, a Chinese assassin who had been dead for centuries, and shoved them directly into the mind of Grand Duchess Anastasia of Russia. Not a vision, not a dream, a full identity overwrite. Anastasia survived her family's execution because, for all intents and purposes, she wasn't Anastasia anymore. She was a trained assassin operating on borrowed instincts, which is, not ideal for a Romanov princess, but significantly better than the alternative. Here's the thing about the precursor box. On its own, it's basically a fancy paperweight. It doesn't control minds, it doesn't shoot energy blasts, it doesn't make you immortal, but plug it into another piece of Eden or hit it with a massive electrical discharge, and it becomes the skeleton key to everything the Isu ever built. It deciphers their language, projects holographic maps, siphons power from nearby artifacts, and apparently just casually rewrites who you are as a person. One of the wildest demonstrations involved the Voynich manuscript, a real document that has baffled cryptographers for over a century. In the Assassin's Creed universe, it's an Isu text. When a precursor box was powered by the Koh-i-Noor diamond, it decoded the entire manuscript and projected a holographic map pinpointing seismic temple locations across the globe. Generations of mystery, solved in seconds by a glorified USB adapter. But the Anastasia incident is what really matters here, because that memory imprinting is functionally a proto-animus. Everything Abstergo spent billions of dollars building with their simulation technology, this little box was already doing on its own. No chair, no headset, no Helix software, just raw Isu engineering achieving memory transfer through direct neural contact. By February 2014, Abstergo had obtained the box and stored it at their Rotterdam facility, fully aware they were holding the ancestor of their most valuable invention. But if you think a box that rewrites identities is strange, wait until you hear about the artifact that built the entire Catholic Church, the Papal Staff of Eden. So here's a fun thought experiment. You're a fisherman in 1st century Judea. Your friend just got crucified by the Roman Empire, and somehow within a generation, you personally help turn a persecuted fringe movement into the most powerful institution in Western history. How does that happen? The answer, at least according to Assassin's Creed, is that St. Peter was walking around with the Staff of Eden. The Papal Staff is one of the Staves of Eden, a class of pieces designed by the Isu to embody sovereignty and dominion. Where apples enslave minds outright, staves are subtler. They project authority, they make people believe the person holding the thing was chosen to lead. And critically, the Papal Staff had a cradle built directly into its headpiece, designed to dock an apple of Eden and amplify its mind control to a terrifying scale. 2 pieces of Eden slotted together, pointed at an entire civilization, which is, not ideal if you're on the receiving end of the sermon. St. Peter carried it first. Then it passed through the hands of the Roman Catholic Church for over 1,000 years, handed from pope to pope like the world's most dangerous scepter, quietly reinforcing the Vatican's grip on European civilization. Every miracle, every declaration of divine authority, every moment where the Pope spoke and emperors listened, the staff was in the room. By the late 1400s, it landed with Rodrigo Borgia, who was using it alongside an apple of Eden to keep his stranglehold on the church, and by extension, half of Europe. In 1499, Ezio Auditore broke into the Sistine Chapel, fought Rodrigo directly, and eventually used the staff combined with the apple to unlock the Vatican vault. Then the vault's own machinery pulled the staff underground, sealing it away for good. And that's the kicker. An artifact that shaped over a millennium of Western religion, politics, and war ended up swallowed by the same Isu technology it was always just a key for. The entire institution it built is still standing. The staff is gone. But if you think a weapon that shaped a religion is unsettling, wait until you hear about an artifact that doesn't just lead armies, but literally rewires what you are at a biological level, the Trident of Poseidon. Most artifacts in this franchise either protect you or control other people. The Trident of Poseidon does neither. It rewrites your biology so you can breathe water. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, when you equip Poseidon's Trident, you gain the ability to stay underwater indefinitely. Not because you're holding your breath really well, because the artifact is fundamentally altering how your body processes oxygen. That's not a quality of life feature, that's evolutionary engineering compressed into a piece of Isu hardware. The Trident was originally associated with the Isu ruler Poseidon and the underwater city of Atlantis, where it functioned as both an environmental control device and a master override for the entire submerged installation. Atlantis wasn't just a myth in this universe, it was a fully operational Isu facility, and someone needed a way to navigate it without constantly surfacing for air. Poseidon's Trident solved that by making its wielder amphibious. But here's where it gets interesting. The franchise matches mythic weapons to their legendary attributes. Mjolnir channels lightning, Excalibur projects energy. By that logic, the Trident almost certainly has broader hydrokinetic abilities beyond just letting you breathe. An artifact built to control an entire underwater civilization probably does more than prevent drowning. What's fascinating is how situational that makes its power. In water, you're essentially a god. On land, it's just a fancy spear. The Isu didn't need every artifact to be universally dominant. They needed specialized tools for specific domains. Here's the key thing. We're now entering the tier where artifacts don't just give you an edge. They change what you are. You're not wearing a device that helps you survive underwater. You are, temporarily, a different kind of organism. That foreshadows the even more extreme body manipulation we'll see with Shrouds and the Staff, where the boundary between human and Isu-engineered posthuman dissolves entirely. But if you think biological adaptation is unsettling, wait until you see what happens when an artifact doesn't just enhance your body, but makes you functionally unkillable in battle. The Spear of Leonidas. You know the story. King Leonidas, 300 Spartans, the Battle of Thermopylae, 480 BCE, one of the most legendary last stands in human history. What you might not know is that, according to Assassin's Creed, Leonidas was swinging Isu technology the entire time. The Spear of Leonidas is a full-blown Spear of Eden, and it turned an already terrifying Spartan king into something borderline supernatural. After Leonidas fell, the spear didn't vanish into history. It passed to his daughter Marine, and then to his granddaughter Cassandra, who became its true wielder across decades of the Peloponnesian War. And Cassandra didn't just stab people with it. The spear granted enhanced strength, teleport-like dashes, near-invisibility cloaking, accelerated healing, and the ability to channel poison and fire through its blade. She could charge arrows so they phased through solid walls, which is, not how walls are supposed to work. Here's where it gets interesting. The spear's power is modular. Cassandra could feed it artifact fragments, scavenged from other Isu devices, at an ancient forge, unlocking higher tiers of abilities like some kind of ancient tech tree. Every fragment made it stronger. Every upgrade made her more dangerous. It was essentially a weapon that leveled up alongside its user. But here's the kicker. The spear has a finite energy reservoir. In 420 BCE, Cassandra brings it too close to an equally powerful Apple of Eden, and the two artifacts overload each other. The result is permanent. The spear's power drains completely and irreversibly. Two pieces of Eden in proximity, and one just dies forever. Turns out, even god-tier technology has compatibility issues. Even depowered, though, the spear still had one last trick. Cassandra's DNA was preserved on the blade itself, turning it into a genetic archive. Thousands of years later, the modern assassin Layla Hassan uses that DNA to access Cassandra's memories through the Animus. A broken weapon became the key to reliving an entire lifetime. Not bad for a piece of scrap metal. But if the spear is what happens when one warrior channels Isu tech through a single weapon, wait until you see what happens when that tech takes the form of a sword and entire empires rise because of it. The Sword of Eden. Excalibur, Graham, and Joan of Arc's blade are the same weapon. Not metaphorically, not spiritually similar. They are literally the same class of Isu technology built by Hephaestus and Consus for the War of Unification, scattered across the globe, and then dressed up by centuries of mythology into completely different legends. Every culture found one, and every culture said, this is clearly a gift from the gods. Which, technically, it was. Here's how they work. Each Sword of Eden consists of two components, a blade and a heart. The blade alone is devastating, projecting energy blasts that can cut through entire formations and shrugging off any conventional damage, like it's made of something physics hasn't invented yet. But slot the heart into it, and you unlock the full suite. Joan of Arc retrieved hers from the Church of Saint Catherine de Fierbois, and the rest is, well, the 100 Years' War. But the energy blasts aren't even the most important part. A Sword of Eden makes its wielder immune to Apple of Eden mind control. The blade's energy field interferes with the limbic manipulation that apples rely on, effectively making every sword wielder a hard counter to every apple wielder. That's not a coincidence, that's an arms race. The ISU built the ultimate offensive mind control device, and then they built the thing that says no. On top of that, swords dramatically amplify charisma and leadership aura. Wielders don't just win fights, they attract followers without trying. Perseus, Genghis Khan, King Arthur, Sigurd, who killed Fafnir with Graham, Joan of Arc, Takeda Shingen, Oda Nobunaga, every single one of them became a legend that people still talk about centuries later. Not because they were just good at fighting, but because holding the sword made people want to follow them into anything. So to recap, you can't be mind controlled, you project devastating energy, your weapon is literally indestructible, and everyone around you becomes fanatically loyal. That's not a sword, that's a general's cheat code. But if you think an indestructible blade is impressive, wait until you hear about a piece of cloth that can rebuild your entire body from the inside out. The Shroud of Eden. Crawford Starrick stood beneath Buckingham Palace in 1868, wrapped in a piece of cloth, and became functionally unkillable. The Fry twins hit him with hidden blades. He regenerated. They overpowered him together. He drained their vitality and stood back up. Every fatal wound closed in seconds. The man was shrugging off attacks that would end any other Templar in the franchise, all because of what amounts to a very angry blanket. Here's the thing. The Shroud of Eden isn't magic. It's nanotechnology, designed by the Isu Consus as a matter regenerator for healing casualties during the War of Unification. When wrapped around a body, it scans for damage and reconstructs tissues on a cellular level. Stab wounds, broken bones, congenital defects, it fixes all of it. Starrick wearing it in combat meant every injury was being undone faster than the twins could inflict it. They had to physically rip the thing off him to win, which is, not ideal when the guy can also sap your life force through his hands. But here's where it gets unsettling. The original Shroud carries Consus's embedded consciousness inside it. He's in there, watching. When the Shroud heals you, Consus can communicate with you, and in some cases, temporarily possess your body. So you're not just putting on a healing device, you're putting on a dead Isu scientist who might decide to take your body for a spin. Cool, add that to the list. And the ceiling on this thing is absurd. Abstergo scientist Alvaro Grammatica used the Shroud to literally grow a new Isu body from scratch for Juno's consciousness. They built a god a new body with a piece of cloth. Juno walked the earth again in physical form before assassin Charlotte de la Cruz killed her, and the whole lab went up in flames. The one saving grace is that the Shroud has hard limits. It cannot truly resurrect the dead, and overuse on a living person can be fatal, because the nanotech starts fixing damage that doesn't exist, tearing the user apart from the inside out. So it's a medical miracle that can also turn you inside out if you get greedy with it. But if a single cloth can rebuild a god's body and make one man invincible, wait until you hear about the diamond that supercharges every other piece of Eden it touches. The Koh-i-Noor, one of the most politically contested jewels on the planet, is sitting in the British Crown Jewels right now. 105 carats. Nations have gone to war over it, governments still argue about who it rightfully belongs to, and none of them know what it actually is. The Koh-i-Noor isn't just a diamond, it's a piece of Eden, possibly the Siamantaka Mani from Hindu mythology, and it might be the single most dangerous artifact on this list for one very specific reason. It doesn't do anything on its own, it makes everything else stronger. Here's the thing, most pieces of Eden are tools. They do a thing. An apple controls minds. A shroud heals. A staff keeps you alive. The Koh-i-Noor is different. It's an amplifier, a cosmic battery that supercharges whatever it's connected to. When Templars used it to power a precursor box, that box went from needing a literal lightning strike to activate to fully decoding Isu script, and projecting holographic maps of seismic temple locations across the entire planet. Lightning got them a partial read. The diamond got them everything. That alone would make it terrifying. But here's where it gets complicated. Most people can't use it. The Koh-i-Noor overwhelms and corrupts ordinary humans who try to wield it. Only individuals with specific genetic lineages, likely sages or those with particularly strong Isu ancestry, can handle its power without losing their minds. Everyone else just gets destroyed, which is, not ideal for the average Templar middle manager hoping to plug it into their favorite artifact. But the instruments of the First Will don't care about average Templar middle managers. They want the Koh-i-Noor because they believe it can synchronize and coordinate multiple pieces of Eden simultaneously, not power one artifact, power all of them, at once, in service of bringing Juno back and re-establishing Isu dominance over humanity, a networked array of apples, all amplified through one diamond, all singing the same frequency. Global compliance at the push of a button. So you've got an artifact that's simultaneously a flashpoint of colonial geopolitics, a force multiplier for the entire ICU arsenal, and a key component in a plan to literally resurrect a god. And it's just sitting in the Tower of London, behind some glass. But if you think a cosmic amplifier sounds dangerous, wait until you hear about the artifact it keeps making stronger. The Apple of Eden. This is the one. The artifact that started the first war between humans and gods, rewrote every major religion, and might have killed a sitting US president. If you've heard of one artifact on this entire list, it's this one. The Apple of Eden is a sphere-shaped device designed by the Isu to do one thing: enslave humanity. When the Isu created humans, they engineered specific neurotransmitters directly into the human brain, little biological receivers that respond to Isu technology. The Apple interfaces with those receivers. Activate it, and every human in range becomes yours. Total mind control. No resistance, no free will, just obedience. But it doesn't stop at mental domination. It can project illusions so convincing they cause physical harm, manipulate gravity, and conjure hard light projections that fight for you. Its official description includes the phrase "turn thought into reality," which is, not ideal for anyone standing nearby. Around 75-10 BCE, two human Isu hybrids named Adam and Eve stole an apple. Because they carried Isu DNA, the neurotransmitter system didn't work on them. They were immune. That theft triggered the Human-Isu War, the conflict that brought down an entire civilization of gods. The franchise literally frames this as the real story behind the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. Throughout history, apples have been linked to Moses parting the Red Sea, the Trojan War, and the miracles of Jesus. Henry Ford reportedly used one to control his factory workers, Hitler used one to dominate populations, and during the JFK assassination, an apple projected phantom illusions on the grassy knoll. I don't know what to tell you. That's the lore. The Mashiach apple specifically is the one Altair spent his entire life studying. He used it to project holographic maps revealing dozens of other pieces of Eden across the globe, encoding memory seals so future assassins could learn from him. An old man pouring everything he knows into a glowing orb so someone centuries later might carry on the fight. But the apple isn't foolproof. Humans with sufficient ICU ancestry can resist its mental control. They can't be puppeted, but they're still vulnerable to raw energy blasts, and unskilled wielders risk insanity or death from overuse. The apple doesn't care who's holding it. A device built to enslave an entire species, stolen by the first humans brave enough to say no, then passed through the hands of prophets, conquerors, and killers for 75,000 years. But if you think a mind control sphere is the most dangerous artifact on this list, wait until you see what happens when someone picks up a staff and simply stops dying. The Staff of Hermes Trismegistus. This is the one. The single most powerful artifact in the entire Assassin's Creed franchise, and it's not particularly close. Because the Staff of Hermes Trismegistus doesn't just give you strength or control or knowledge, it gives you forever. Created by the Isu Hermes Trismegistus himself, the staff's primary function is true biological immortality, not slow aging, not enhanced lifespan, full, complete immunity to time. You don't age, you don't need food, you don't need water, you just exist, perfectly preserved, while everything around you turns to dust. Hermes wielded it from the moment of its creation, survived the great catastrophe that wiped out his entire civilization, and eventually passed it to Pythagoras, who passed it to his daughter Cassandra. She carried it for over 2,000 years. Cassandra watched the Roman Empire rise and fall. She saw the Dark Ages, the Renaissance, 2 world wars, all while looking exactly the same as the day she first grabbed the staff. That's not a gift. That's a prison sentence with nice lighting. And here's the part that makes it genuinely horrifying. The moment you let go, you die. Both Pythagoras and Cassandra aged rapidly and perished within seconds of relinquishing the staff. 2,000 years of borrowed time collected instantly. Every single day Cassandra held that thing, she was making a choice. Keep living, alone, watching everyone she's ever loved turn to bones, or let go and let 2 millennia hit her all at once. But the staff does more than just keep you alive. It shapeshifts into whatever form the user wants. It regenerates bodies to their physical prime, which is exactly what happens when Basim crawls out of Yggdrasil, looking like he just had a spa day instead of centuries in a digital prison. It projects devastating energy blasts, and according to in-universe warnings, it could destroy entire cities, as it allegedly did to Atlantis. Cool. That's also a thing it can do. And then there's the corruption. When Layla Hassan receives the staff in 2018, she doesn't become wise. She becomes dangerous. The staff's influence warps her judgment so severely that she accidentally kills her own mentor, Victoria Bebo. Turns out immortality doesn't make you worthy of it. It just gives you more time to prove you aren't. Because every person who has ever held this staff has either died the moment they stopped or become something they never wanted to be. And that's the real lesson of every piece of Eden we've covered today. Power doesn't corrupt because it's evil. It corrupts because it doesn't care what you were before you picked it up. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.